Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just did a little bit of a look at all of the upset alert teams for this upcoming weekend. Notre Dame is on upset alert once again heading down to Purdue, so that's definitely going to be one you're going to want to watch. But let's get into the top 10 teams. There are a couple of top 10 teams that have not necessarily played clean football through 2 weeks, and a couple that played really bad football a week ago. So what do we need to see from these teams this upcoming week, and how can they kind of subside some of those worries that their fan base has right about now? And we'll start with Georgia. There are not a lot of worries around Georgia right about now. I think Kentucky's coming into this one looking downright anemic on offense. Last week it was just gross against South Carolina. They got dominated on the offensive line, could not get that run game going. Brock Vandagriff, I believe, took more sacks than he had completions in this game. It was insanity. Kentucky could get absolutely nothing going, and I think when you look at this game, there's a million different things that you'd love to see from Georgia, but more than anything, it's about doing what you've done to Kentucky the past several years, win by double digits and keep it moving. They've been dominating this team for quite some time. They had a relatively close one, 16-6 a couple of years ago, but other than that, it's belonged to Georgia, and I think it's going to be one of those games where you want to see a little bit more from that run game, probably want to see Trevor Etienne get a little bit more comfortable in that offense, but at the end of the day, Kentucky has shown me very little to make me worried about this game if you're a Georgia fan. So I think it's one of those games, let Carson Beck flex his muscles a little bit, get into that bye week, be healthy, and then you got a huge one against Bama. So it's kind of just about taking care of business, and that's not the way Kentucky thought I was going to be looking at this game, not the way that I thought I was going to be looking at this game going into the season, but as of right now, I have no reason to believe Kentucky's going to go down to Athens and get a big-time win this weekend. But moving on to Texas, again, not a team that really has too much to worry about, but this is a spot. This is one of those spots like Notre Dame last weekend, and this is something Steve Sarkisian has talked about throughout this week, said, we do not want to be a Notre Dame. We do not want to be in that scenario, and it's one of those things that could happen against a UTSA team that has not played good football through 2 weeks. There's no doubt about that. Got taken to the woodshed, honestly, by Texas State a week ago, but the reality is still a team that is capable of a lot. Still a team that is being looked at in the American as a real contender, and it could be one of those things that if Texas doesn't come right, then UTSA could come out to a big-time lead, and then you're playing from behind. It happened a couple of years ago when Texas played this team, and they were able to come from behind, but maybe this team is just a little bit distracted after a huge win from last week. So overall, I'm not overly worried about this game for Texas. I think it's one of those that you just got to be able to be focused early on in this game, throw the first punch, and then you're likely off running. But overall, I think stay healthy in this game, especially at running back. Make sure that all of your running backs are okay as you head into SEC play, and then utilize all that depth that you have. Make sure that you get as many guys reps as you can, because you never know what can happen once you get into SEC play, and a lot of these guys are going to be called on to make big-time plays. So more than anything, get that win, stay healthy, get the depth going, and keep your season rolling if you're Texas. Alabama heading up to Wisconsin. I gave my pick on this earlier. I do think Alabama rolls in this game, but what do we need to see for them to roll in this game? The biggest thing is the O-line. They need to look so much better than they have already. I do think getting Caden Proctor back is going to be huge, because then you can slide Tyler Booker back to the interior, and that kind of solves a lot of the issues that they've been dealing with, but they don't have that for this weekend. So they're going to have to find a way to at least get a little bit of push on this team, because if Wisconsin can stop this run game, then Jalen Milroe is going to have a lot on his shoulders to be able to win in a very, very raucous environment. So it's one of those games that if the O-line doesn't show up, then Wisconsin has a door open that they likely should not have in this game. And then you have a number of different things on the defensive side of the ball. I really want to see this back end play lights out. There were so many moments in week 2 against USF where USF just missed a spot. Byron Brown just missed a receiver that was relatively open, and Tyler Van Dyke, although not necessarily the most explosive player in the world, has the ability to make some of those plays. So you're going to have to make sure you just play really clean football. You don't necessarily have to deal with ridiculous receivers all over the field, but you have to make sure there aren't those openings, because if Georgia sees those openings on tape, they're going to expose them when they come on the field in a couple of weeks here. So going to be a really fun game. I think Alabama wins pretty comfortably, but plenty that we need to see from the Crimson Tide to feel comfortable going into that UGA game. Ole Miss heading over to Wake Forest. This is one we talked about in the last segment, and it's one that I think the goal for Ole Miss is to make me feel dumb for putting it in the upset alert segment. Make me feel stupid for even thinking that this would be a possible upset, because Ole Miss has taken care of business thus far, and they're going to be able to likely take care of business in this game. But the reality is, you should look dominant. If you're going to be a contender in the SEC, if you're going to compete for a national title, Wake Forest is a team that you should take to the woodshed, move on with your day, and then just get into SEC play. So it's one of those games that's really interesting. I think Wake Forest is going to throw the ball around a lot, so we'll learn a little bit about that Wake Forest back end. How good are they? How ready are they for SEC football? But at the end of the day, it's about flexing your muscles, getting a big-time win, maybe adding a little bit to Jackson Dart's Heisman campaign, and then rolling out of town. Then Missouri-Boston College, we talked about this one, but this is a huge one for Missouri, I think. It's one of those games that we talked about how Ole Miss has kind of been rolling through the first couple of weeks. So is Missouri, and they're going to have a point where they really flip that switch. Now, they're playing really good football. It's not like they have to change the way that they're playing football, but they do have to, hit another gear as they head into SEC play, and I think this is a great opportunity to do that. It's a team that is going to give you some problems on the ground with Thomas Castellanos in this defense and this offense, but they're not necessarily dangerous enough for you to really worry about. That sounds a little bit crazy, but they're not necessarily a team that you should be able to beat this team, and you should be able to beat them pretty comfortably, is the way I'm trying to put this. But at the end of the day, I think they're going to ask enough questions of this Missouri defense where we're going to be able to find out a lot. If they can win this game by 21 points and be really, really dominant in that fashion and hold Thomas Castellanos under bay, then I think we're having a real conversation about Missouri. But as of right now, they're one of those teams that I'm just really hesitant to buy in on because I haven't necessarily seen them against a big-time team. I think this weekend will give me a much better idea of what Missouri is in 2024. And then Tennessee, it's kind of like a Texas situation. They're playing Kent State, a team that, frankly, could lose every single game on their schedule because they're coming off 2 weeks where they lost to Pitt by a ton of points and then lost to St. Francis last week. So this is not a great Kent State team. This is not a team that should really worry Tennessee, and that's why they're favored by 49 points in this game. Oh, excuse me, I apologize. So more than anything, it's about doing what you did to NC State. It's about running the ball, it's about playing defense, it's about flexing your muscles, and it's about getting out healthy more than anything else. So all of this is really just window dressing for Tennessee as they get closer to the SEC play, and they're going to have to make sure that they take care of business here, because if they show any sign of weakness, then there are some SEC teams that are going to smell blood in the water for this team. But moving on to Oregon, there are about a million things that you want to see in this game, but frankly, I just love seeing this game on the schedule. It's awesome to see these two teams playing each other, and if they continue to play each other, I'll be very happy. If this game goes by the wayside, I'll get mad in a hurry. I'll be totally honest with you guys. But at the end of the day, there are a million things you need to see from Oregon. The biggest thing is the O-line. You should be able to push around Oregon State. No disrespect to what Oregon State is. I think they've done a really good job of keeping that thing afloat under crazy circumstances, but they lost a lot of the crazy difference makers on that team, including Silas Bolden and Damian Martinez. So you're going to need to make sure that you dominate this game, especially at the line of scrimmage. You have the bigger, more physical, more talented players. This should not be an issue. And if it is, then you got real problems. And then on the other side of things, hit explosive plays. They have not been able to do that the entire year. And I understand Dylan Gabriel doesn't have the biggest arm in the world, but the reality is you have to be able to push the ball downfield if you're going to beat Ohio State, if you're going to beat Michigan down the road. So you're going to have to figure that out one way or the other. And this is a game where, at the very least, you could start to figure that out. So Dylan Gabriel, just start pulling the trigger. Start going deep. Start attacking this defense a little bit. Maybe you'll make a mistake or two, but if you don't have a downfield passing attack as Oregon going into this year, you have no shot to make the playoff. I'm just being totally honest. And then Miami at number 10 playing Ball State. They're on cruise control right about now. And I think when they get into next week, they have to get off cruise control very, very quickly because they go to USF in week 4. And that's a team that caused some problems for Bama in week 2. So you're definitely going to want to be ready for that one. But Ball State is not necessarily the same team that USF is. So Miami is favored by 36.5 in this game. Make this game short. Run the ball, ride the O-line, get the starters out of there as quickly as possible, and then move on to the big one next week. And then, I got a couple other big ones down the road. But the reality is Cam Ward can continue his Heisman campaign in this one as long as he is healthy at the end of this game and you walk out with a win. You feel really good if you're Miami. So overall, it's like a lot of these games this upcoming weekend. Just take care of your business, keep moving forward, and then hope that you have all of your players healthy going into next week. But so many different things for these top 10 teams that are going to be really interesting to watch this upcoming weekend. I think Oregon's the one that everyone's watching the closest. There's so many different questions around that team right now, and they got plenty to figure out on that offensive side of the ball. So we'll see what they can do against Oregon State, and we'll see what all these teams can do against some inferior opponents this upcoming weekend. But let's take our last break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the questions heading into Week 3. There are a ton that I have as we head into this week. Probably we'll do this tomorrow as well, but as we talk about this, I mean, who's going to make a big-time statement? Who could be a Heisman contender after this week? Is Notre Dame out of... Is there a Notre Dame out there? That's the way I put it. I apologize. Is there a Notre Dame out there this weekend? There are so many different things that we have to address as we head into Week 3, so we're going to do it right after this. So stick with us, and we'll be right back with that.